When we look at a family tree, we see the past, our roots living deep beneath us, the present of ourselves and our relations, and the future of descendants and descendants to come. While the lineage remains the same, the stories we tell about these relations are constantly being negotiated. My research is focused on the stories we tell about gender relations, and more specifically, gender-based violence in the family. Now, I use the term gender-based violence to include the range of violent acts used disproportionately by men against women as a result of gender inequality. Sexual violence, domestic violence, financial and emotional abuse are all examples of the ways in which we relate to one another by gender can result in harm. My research took me to the small Pacific country of Niue. Located between Samoa and Tonga, Niue has largely fallen through the cracks in terms of seeing what gender-based violence looks like on the island. Now, gender-based violence is difficult to research because, as you can imagine, it's difficult to talk about. This is particularly true in a small place like Niue. And when we're researching social issues, we also want to know more than there is a problem. We want to talk solutions too. In my research, I used a new approach to look at the space most Niueans named as the most important when it comes to dealing with gender-based violence, the family. I met with 14 Niuean women to map their family trees and to discuss relationships using a narrative Talanoa blended approach. We started by creating a family tree, like the one you see here, on a big A3 sheet of paper. And that became the roadmap for the rest of our conversation, while we talked about what makes a relationship strong and what can cause problems. Instead of talking about her and I, we were talking about cousins and aunties and grandchildren. Discussing relationships in the family in this way is natural and familiar, and it likely is for most of us. But what's really compelling about this approach is that we learn that the family space is full of opportunities. And in my findings, I've grouped these into 4 areas: disclosure and how we support those who have been harmed to share, gossip and how we think and talk about gender-based violence, education and how we learn and unlearn gender norms, and of course, accountability and how we respond to those who have caused harm. Now, this family tree mapping approach can be effective both in researching gender-based violence as well as responding to it as a method that honors women's knowledge and authority while centering the family's critical context. This is the space where conversations must continue. From survivors and bystanders, from the suspicious and the curious, engaging with family in this way is a pathway for change. And it's here we see how our family trees live through our relations. They can be spaces to heal and to shape the stories of how we relate to one another and cultivate healthy relationships.